What is going on out there, peeps? Alrighty. Yes, see this lovely guy right here? That is my father. He is a very, very, very proud Marine. Today was interesting because I started reflecting on the mission and the purpose that finding life's purpose is serving. They want to go out and help the homeless and build homes and build communities, offer free medical and dental services to the homeless people, try to find them a new trade. I mean, there's a lot of things going on with that. So I watched a couple of videos, which, they're the type of videos that really will pull on your heartstrings. You know what I mean? It's all about family. There's some families, complete families, kids and all, that are homeless. They really are. I've had conversations with families that are homeless before. It's amazing how, like the smallest thing in the world, it's not like they're not trying. They're trying, but it only takes one thing, just one small thing or one major thing to throw them totally off money wise. One thing leads to another, and you're constantly trying to catch up. And you try and you try and you try, and sometimes you can't get there. And so a lot of them end up homeless in these tents. You know what I mean? Anyways, I started thinking about my father. And when I was growing up as a kid, we couldn't always afford things. But, you know, my father, if we couldn't buy it, he would try to make it. You know what I mean? That's the one thing about him that was interesting. Um, he served in Vietnam. Unfortunately, his service cost him his life. My father didn't die in Vietnam. He died of the Agent Orange. It killed him. He got cancer. Now I'm grateful. I lived with my father and had a chance to know him 45 years of my life. I can't tell you how blessed I felt about that. But he definitely tried when we were around him to give what he can. He wasn't a great father, he was just a great man. In other words, my father, I don't think, understood what it meant to be a parent. Instead of being a parent, he ended up being like one of my best friends. Now, what I mean by he wasn't a good parent is we used to go fishing a lot. And we used to have our own little ice chest. And I used to have mine with soda. Dad had beers. So I would try to go over and drink his beers all the time. So one time I went fishing, and in my little ice cooler were beers. So yeah, my father was a functional alcoholic. And I grew up being a functional alcoholic too. In other words, I could do my job. I could be in public. I could be shit faced and you would have no idea how drunk I was. Now, there are times, don't get me wrong, where I'm a dead giveaway. There are times where I might slightly slur my words. But I can do my job, I can function, I can do whatever. My father was the same way. Now, back in those days, you could get away with doing that kind of crap as a parent. How? I used to drive my father home. I learned to drive at a young age. I was like 11 years old when I first started driving. Yeah, my father would get too drunk and he couldn't drive. Now you have to say to yourself, well, good. I mean, that's a smart thing. He doesn't want to be drunk, doesn't want to be on the road. He doesn't want to do something stupid and kill somebody. No, no, no. My father had this brilliant idea. He said, you drive the car. I'm like 11. I like me drive. You drive the car. So I'm driving. He said, it's better for you to get a ticket for driving without a license than for me to get a DUI. Oh my God. So yeah, trust me when I tell you this. I learned to drive at a very young age. I got good at it, and so I know these stories might sound terrible to people, but they're like the funniest things that I remember, like crazy, silly things my father used to do. When I told you at one time, I don't know if it was when I told you he would make something if we didn't couldn't afford it. That and just my father was cheap. So I bitched and moaned about wanting a skateboard one day, and yep. So I got something to look like this. Now this is a piece of wood with roller skate metal wheels on it. Oh my God! Some of you people will never experience the horrible feeling of flying down the asphalt on a wooden plank and metal wheels. You feel each and every little tiny bump you hit, and God forbid if you hit a rock because you would go flying forward. It's these stupid little things that you remember when people that you love pass away. It's just one of those things. But one thing's for sure, he might have not have made the best decisions as a parent, but he really was a good man. And he didn't want to screw with any of his friends or any of his family members. You would see a real ugly side of my father. My father was a bouncer for the longest time. Me and my brother literally watch him kick the crap out of an entire softball team. Yeah. You see, I know you're thinking that's impossible. No, no. There was a strategy, trust me. Now, we've seen these softball teams come in rowdy, drinking, getting loud. As many times my father asked them to calm down, they weren't having it. See, back then they didn't have cell phones. So we were laughing because I could tell my father was getting irritated. And I said, what are you going to do? It's an entire softball team. Oh, no. No, 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 no. You see, my father was slick. He'd walk them out the door one at a time, and if they got out of hand, he'd just kick the crap out of them and then send them home. It's not like they could jump on their cell phones and say, hey, come help me. Dad made sure that they left the parking lot. Then come in and grab another one. Me and brother Brad are like, what do you think he's doing? I go, I don't know. He's talking to them. I'm sure he must be talking to them and sending them home. The problem was when he kept coming in, he looked a little bit more bloodier and bloodier. I was like, what the hell is my father doing? So we walked through the side door and watched what he was doing. That's what he was doing. He's walking them out one at a time and making them leave. So we like to tell this story. When he got down to the last few, they figured out kind of what's happening. They just left on their own. We like to tell the story. Yeah, we watched my father kick the crap out of an entire softball team. People automatically would just think, oh, it must be an entire team. It's funny. Anyways, I remember an issue one time with my father in which we were about to lose our home. The people that we were renting from sold this house from underneath them. We didn't have time to collect money and do whatever we need. In other words, my father was not ready for this. 90 days is what they give him. And 90 days may sound like a lot to some people. But my father was living a lot paycheck to paycheck. So it's not easy to accumulate enough money to move really quickly if you live paycheck to paycheck. My father suffered from PTSD as well. It didn't take him much to get irritable really quick when he had to deal with stressful situations. And God forbid if anything loud like a boom goes off, he would fly out of his sleep and jump up. Still, years after the Vietnam War, decades, it still affected him. I love my father and I miss him. I bring this up for a reason. Now, as you can imagine, because I have a platform, I will get asked about doing certain things for people from time to time. But I don't want to some of these things that people ask me, I can't do. It's not that I don't want to, I just can't do it. You got to understand that sometimes if you do this, you can open up the floodgates and it's just too much. You know, you keep asking your subscribers, can you do this? Can you do that? You don't want to do that. It's not that I don't want to. I hope you guys understand. I would love to help everybody in the world if I could. It's just not possible. But something I saw caught my attention. And I've been reflecting on this for a couple of days. And the reason why it was hitting me a certain way is because I understood the situation. Everything about this reminded me of what me and watching my father going through. So I hope you don't mind if I share this with you. This is Will Bird. This is his lovely family. Will is in a situation that instantly reminded me of what I went through with my father. Will suffers from PTSD. It's hard for him to hold a job. I can relate to this. My father struggled too. Not as bad as Will does, but I've seen him struggle from time to time. He can get very short and he can have his fuse lit quickly. He just sometimes could not deal with public at all. Not all the time. He's very sociable, but there were times where he just would get irritated for no reason. You're like, what's wrong? He was like, I just don't want to be here. It's too crowded, blah, 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 and just leave. Will honorably served our country. He didn't ask to come home all beat to crap, suffering from ongoing problems that the war gave him. His lovely wife there has been supporting him through his PTSD. He's always been able to provide for his family. There's no problems. Well, Will had a friend, served in the military. They had an arrangement. Will's renting this place from his friend. The friend was separated from his wife. They'd been living there for years. Will's going to tell you the story himself, and I'll play it here in a second. But Will has a special needs child. Special needs children don't like change. They get familiar. They like habits. They like, patterns. They have to be in the routine, if you get my drift. While people who suffer from hardcore PSD, it's the same thing. They love familiarity. They don't like change. It's too much to deal with. This gentleman, unfortunately, separated from his wife, and they've been living there for years with an arrangement between them. They both have an agreement on this place for them to stay. While the wife popped back up, she decided she wanted her name off of everything. Now, before you say it, I already thought it and already went through this. Just quit claim the deed. Well, that's not the full story. The sneaky little friend sold the house out from under Will. Or wants to sell the house out. Wants to sell the house out from Will. So he's giving Will an opportunity to buy the house. Again, it reminded me of what my father did. Just giving him a short notice to come up with money that you don't have is not easy. I don't usually do this type of thing, but this is something that is close to me because I can relate to it. Will has a GoFundMe page. You can see how far along they are. I've gotten in here and I've donated. I'm going to reach out to a couple of my other friends and do more. But Will's just a tittle bit off his goal, as you can see. I have 73,000 subscribers. If every single one of you gave just $1, do you know how much of a world of difference that would make? And if all of you guys gave $2, that would take care of the problem altogether. Now, I know some of you can't afford to do that, and that's fine. And I wouldn't usually ask people to do these types of things. But like I said, I've watched my father go through this. My father was my entire foundation. He was a strong man. So I hated to watch him go through this. I really did. So Will here, some of you might not, or some of you might know him. So let me just say this before we get into that part. You see, when we're in the world of YouTube, there's a lot of us that are in different arenas. And trust me, you get those individuals out there in which you bump heads and you talk crap about one another. That's fine. You guys know when I talk about the dinar, me and Jeff have bumped heads several times. But what happened when I found out that Jeff might get in trouble once Benny put out that video? You put that aside. I was like, Jeff is an asshole, don't get me wrong. But I really didn't want him to get in trouble. So I put out that video saying, hey, you guys help me get the message over to Jeff. I want to make sure that he did not miss the message coming from Benny, because Benny gave him an ultimatum. Now, as much as I think Jeff's an asshole, it didn't make a difference. What I was hoping Jeff did, and I never did hear at the conclusion, I haven't been to his site, I was hoping that Jeff would follow those instructions. Keep his ass out of trouble, and I was being sincere about it. I bring that up because when we all talk about Nasera Jacera, we all know that Charlie and his truth-telling friends have a very large following. We know this. Trust me, I personally know. If I say anything in my own videos that is not lined up with Charlie's, all hell breaks loose. Or if I say anything that might appear derogatory, all hell breaks loose. This isn't that time. And I bring that up because Will here is part of the Grift Busters. If you don't know who the Grift Busters are, don't worry about it. There's no need to know who they are. For those you know who the Grift Busters are, I get it, especially if you're a Charlie Ward fan or any of his True Talent friends, you'll know who the Grift Busters are. And they might have upset you from one time or another. That's fine. This isn't that time to be focusing on that. This is the time for us to come together as human beings. So now I'm respectfully requesting to my subscribers to please do what you can to help this family. Please reach out, give what you can, so we can help them achieve their goal. Now, I have no idea what you guys are capable of, but I thought I would give it a try. If all I do is wake up in the morning and find out altogether we gave $6, it'd be kind of disappointing, but I'm glad you gave something. Now, obviously, I don't think we're just going to do $6, or I wouldn't have wasted my time. I'm going to let you guys listen a little bit to Will explain things to you, and you'll understand.
Now that I have a little more time to explain myself here at the GoFundMe, first of all, thanks for checking out the link. Second of all, I'd like to give a better explanation of the story. I am a wounded combat veteran. I'm disabled for PTSD. I'm working on getting full disability. Right now, I'm about 50% disabled, but I cannot work. I've tried and tried and tried to stay working. It's one of the most frustrating things. I always had pride in my work, and now I can't. But at least I was able to provide for my family, and now it seems that I can't do that either. when 3 years ago we were looking for a home to rent. We were leaving the current home.
I'm gonna pause that just a little bit there before I get all wussified and sound like a puss on here crying. I know what Will's talking about. When I was younger, my father had a hard time in the beginning because of his PTSD. Over time, he learned how to deal with it. But it didn't happen right away. This is humbling to anybody that has to do this. So again, I hope and pray that you guys get past your differences that you might have with them and think about contributing and then doing so.
When we were, because it was just too much work. We had bought a fixer-upper, and we didn't seem to ever have money and time at the same time. I was going through a lot of issues with my PTSD. I was still working, but it was going downhill fast. I had a couple run-ins with the law, a couple of attempts on my own life, and my son called me one Father's Day, and the straw that broke the camel's back. Not only was I struggling with all this out on the road, the PTSD, the nightmares, the flashbacks, the uncontrolled anger, the run-ins with the law, all that stuff, but my son, my oldest son, told me Happy Father's Day and asked me when I got some time off if I could come see him where he lives, as if we didn't live together. So I came off the road and I fought with the VA, and I got the percentage I could, and we were looking for a home to rent, and I ran into another veteran with PTSD, and he guaranteed me if I helped him get his cabin and live in order to where he could move off grid. He was going through a divorce, and he was losing everything as well. At that time, he was losing everything. He was going through his divorce, and if I could help him get his cabin livable, and guarantee me this home for 10 years, with an option at the end to rent for another 5 or to buy it outright, or I could buy it at any time, and all the rent I paid was going towards the price of the house, minus a few $100s that went directly to him. The offer sounded too good to be true, but I thought for the first time in my life I'd finally had some good luck, and I would take it from him. We lived here for 3 years. We loved the house. It's perfect. I told you I had a son who's special needs. He doesn't do well with change, and neither do I. And this is the first time we felt settled. This is the first time we felt like it was a place of our own. This is the first time that we thought we would never move again. This was our house. My wife loves it. The kids love it. Everybody's here. I even have this little makeshift corner of the playroom that I use for a studio, because I use my YouTube videos as part of my therapy to kind of vent.
They live out there in Tennessee. Any of my subscribers that know anybody in Tennessee that might be able to help, I would surely and deeply appreciate that.
A week ago, I got a phone call that said that the owner and his wife were in an argument. They've been divorced for several years now, in an argument, and she said, I want my name off everything. I don't care if you have a contract, it won't stand up in court because I never signed it, and I'm on the deed. The guy who owns the house tells me he can't refinance it because he's got to worry about his own shit that she's also listed on. And then I had 2 months to be gone or buy the house. I went from 10 years guaranteed, 7 of it left, to 2 months. I've been fighting the VA for the last 2 years because I'm unemployable and I've lost everything to retain the house. My credit score is shit. I can't show a proof of income because I have to work odd jobs to survive on the measly disability the government gives me for fucking up my mind. I said in the shorter videos, I've done some amazing things in my life. I mean, I've paid for it. It's fucked up my mind. I can't function the way I used to. I can't work. I can't get along with anybody. I can't remain calm in situations where I should be able to remain calm. I know I'm a mess, but one thing I could do was provide for my family and take care of them. Now I've been given a situation where it doesn't matter that I can do that because it's taken that ability away as well. Never had to ask for help, and that's the hardest thing I've probably ever had. Out of all the things I've ever had to do is to come here and ask you for help. I know it's a lot of money. I don't have it. None of my family has it to give it to me. None of my friends have it to give it to me. But someone in my community suggested that maybe everybody could come together. I'm telling you, this is hard for me to do. You know how embarrassing it is to come out and say that you can't provide for your family? That you can't put a roof over the head.
That's enough. First of all, making the video has got to be the most humbling experience. So excuse me if I cut him off just a little bit, but it's not necessary, Will. I'm going to cut you off just a little bit, my brother. I think my subscribers get it. A lot of times I often question whether or not there's any small bit of humanity in people, the way everybody's been going at one another for the past few years. And trust me, I've contributed to it myself. But I like to think no matter how opposite we are, how we don't always agree on the same things, and how we might, or I should say, disagree on damn near everything, I like to think in a time of need that people would put all those petty differences aside and come to each other's aids. Maybe I'm naive, but I haven't given up yet on humanity. So once again, I'm respectfully pleading to my subscribers to do what you can. I get it. Times are tough right now for everybody, and everybody has their own problems. I get it. Like I said, if every one of my subscribers gave $1, we'd do pretty damn good. If every one of you gave $2, there would be no problem left. He would hit his goal. So, help me do what I can to help Will reach his goal. I will be eternally grateful for that. And I'm sorry to just come out there and reach out to you guys this way, but I like to think that a lot of the subscribers that follow me really are deep down great people, God-fearing people, and sometimes can relate to the situation like I did. And because I was able to relate to what Will's going through is why I'm doing what I'm doing now. So please do me a favor. I'll leave the link right down below in the description. If you can. If you can't, I understand. But if you can, let's help Will and his family do what they can to keep the place. I often ask myself, because I know for a fact, if this was my dad's friend, my dad would have been his ass backwards doing everything he possibly could to make sure that his friend kept his house. And I mean literally, because that's the kind of guy my father was. He was the kind of friend that you wanted. He's the kind of friend that would do whatever it takes to help his friends out. wasn't the greatest parent in the world, but he was a great man.